I wrote in that, do not expect any interest rate decreases, even though I thought this might be the best year in bonds at about 5. Now I'm thinking it's just going to be ho-hum, okay. Bonds prices are not really going to come down. They'll stay pretty steady. Maybe they'll come down a little bit with some softening because they're so high. But in general, I think we're at the middle of an okay time. It reminds me a little bit about 1998, 1999. Is there the 2000 coming? I don't know. But we have such an AI boom right now. And I remember people yelling at me in 1999 that, Elliot, you don't understand. It's all about the new economy. The old economy's dead. And they were pretty wrong.
You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
And welcome. You are listening to and watching the Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Kerry Lutz. Well, hey, we're still in the first week of May of this year. And next person you're about to hear from, really interesting. Besides being a digital nomad, an author, and a lot of other things, a speaker, and I don't know what else he does there, but a lot of different things. Elliot, Kallen. It's great to have you on the show. So life as a digital nomad, that's everybody's goal now, that everybody wants to just kind of travel around and do stuff and make content, write books or whatever, and never have a place anymore. You're kind of ahead of that trend, aren't you?
Oh, first of all, Kerry, it's great to be on your show. Thanks for having me. And it's a lot of fun, and it's scary being in a world of AI and digital assets as we are today. I'm wondering if AI is going to put all of us out of business at some point on it. But I'm fortunate enough that I like to write, so I wrote a couple of books, and then I like to do shows. So I've got a podcast with 65 of my own podcasts that's now in the top 2% in the world. I love to be on shows like yours. I think you bring this incredible value to the market. People that are listening are the boomers and the Xers and the entrepreneurs, the people that want to grab onto a good piece of information, another nugget, so to speak, in their career and in their business life. And I like being part of that. It's enjoyable for me. If I had to give up my companies and do what I do, I'd probably do this because I like it so much.
Hey, understandable. And so what is the thing you're most proud of in your life? What's your life's accomplishment, Elliot?
Well, I never would have thought about this in a different way, but I have a charity that we started, and I know this is not a charity show, but I have a charity that I started called A Brighter Day, or at abrighterday.info, back in 2016, following the suicide of my youngest son at college. And so he walked in front of a truck, then walked to the highway, jumped in front of an oncoming truck at the University of Montana. And we took that to heart in a suicide note to us, where he just was in such pain from depression that he just couldn't go on anymore. And we started a charity that creates resources for teenagers and their families on stress and depression with the goal of stopping teen suicide. We're now in all 50 states, and we touch about 4,000 to 8,000 families every single month, Kerry.
Oh, God.
And so it would have been, I was proud of my kids or marriage, there are a lot of things I've always been proud of, and other things I would change if I could, because that's the reality of life. But making a difference out of this tragedy is a pretty cool thing to be doing.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And I can only imagine the sorrow and pain you were feeling. So it's great that you turned it into something to help other people not suffer a similar fate to your son. So getting back to the world of business and finance, you've sold a couple of businesses, but you haven't given up the entrepreneurial bug yet, have you?
No, this is business 3, 4, and 5 that I've started that I'm running now. I started in the 80s following a big 8 accounting firm career, very short career, and I started doing that. I sold that in 87, then sold another business in 92. I like starting and I like building. Listen, I can tell you, there's no entrepreneur that likes dealing with the day-to-day employment issues and headaches and cash flow and accounts receivable problems and the bank calling up saying you're overdrafted and how big you want to get your line of credit and how do I borrow it. These are the problems and challenges of an entrepreneur, and I love that, but nobody likes that part of it. And I'm no different than anybody else out there, but I like starting and building, and of course, I'm now beginning to enter that phase of my life that I got to think about exit strategies. I never thought I had to, but like most business owners, you have a cycle of life and you have a cycle of your business. And so,
yeah, everything is cycles. I've learned that over time. So talking about cycles, economic cycles, something you follow closely, right?
Of course, I have to.
Right. So where are we in the cycle now?
So let me be a little bit of a contrarian for a moment, if I could. I've been hearing that we were going to have a recession in the last half of last year, the last half of the year before. I'm not sure we're going to have a recession at all now coming up. And if we do, it's so mild, you may breathe right through it. So let's go with a lack of recession. If we don't have a recession, then we also don't have interest rates coming down.
Right.
About 5-6 months ago, I wrote a series of articles about how interest rates, we have a newsletter that goes out to a few thousand people every month, and then it hits the internet. And I wrote in that, do not expect any interest rate decreases, even though I thought this might be the best year in bonds at about 5. Now I'm thinking it's just going to be ho-hum, okay. Bonds prices are not really going to come down. They'll stay pretty steady. Maybe they'll come down a little bit with some softening because they're so high. But in general, I think we're at the middle of an okay time. It reminds me a little bit about 1998, 1999. Is there the 2000 coming? I don't know. But we have such an AI boom right now. And I remember people yelling at me in 1999 that, Elliot, you don't understand. It's all about the new economy. The old economy's dead. And they were pretty wrong.
So, it's interesting because I've looked at it from the standpoint of the dot-com era. Before the internet swept the planet, the American economy was on the decline. We were going to be a second-rate power, and the economy was going to hell in a handbasket. And then guess what? The internet came. It led to what we still were unable to actually appreciate, a massive increase in productivity at every level of business, right? And we still don't appreciate that. That just, let's take the mundane task. I want to send Elliot $1,000. All right. The way I used to do it was, hey, I would take out my checkbook. I'd write a check, or if I was sophisticated, I'd print the check. I would sign it. Then I'd put it in an envelope, and maybe it had a window on it, and maybe it didn't, and I had to write out or type your address on it, affix a stamp, go to the mailbox or put it in the mail stack, and it went out. Now, I want to send you $1,000, Elliot. I hop on the internet. I could send it to you by mail. I could send you a Venmo. You get it instantly, or a Zelle, or a PayPal. I don't think economists and the people that actually track this stuff ever really appreciated how the internet boosted productivity. I think we are at the same point in AI. I don't know if it's actually going to wind up eliminating jobs or not, but I think we're at the same point as we were in the early 90s, where things look very uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen. It looks like a period of sustained decline. And yet this AI has come to the forefront and has the potential to change everything.
Well, you're 100% correct. In a good way, it can change many, many things. In a down way, it's included in things like putting American truck drivers out of business because people go to driverless trucks.
Well, less serial killers then, right?
Less serial killers. The end of the truck stop as we know it today.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it has the ability to be, it doesn't have the ability, it will be a huge disruptor. And a disruptor in many good ways, but in the disruptor is still for the, they used to have this phrase that if your neighbor gets fired from their job, gets laid off, that's called a recession. But if you get laid off, that's a depression. And that's kind of how it's going to be with AI is that, just look, I have a writer on staff who writes articles for me and I write as well. And at some point, do I need them? Do I need her? Or do I need me?
I can tell you from my own experience, the thing I used to hate to do most when I started podcasting, YouTubing, was writing show notes. And I actually hired somebody. I was paying like $1,200 to $1,500 a month. I did a lot of shows to write show notes. Then we got the AI note taker that's incorporated directly into Zoom, and then Chat GPT. Now I get those things done within 5 minutes after the interview's been transcribed automatically, and I have my show notes posted, and then shows can get posted sometimes in just hours, where they used to take a day or two because I'd have a queue of them. So that's just for me. And multiply that 1,000-fold across the world. That's relatively mundane. But yes, there are going to be job losses for sure. But in all the industrial revolution and computer revolution that happened before, there was only one job category that actually was eliminated. Can't remember what it was, but it was a relatively minor job category. This time, 10 million drivers. The biggest occupation in the United States is driver, with over 10 million people, and all different types of drivers: Uber, limo, taxi drivers, truck drivers, van, Amazon, all that. And that's coming to an end, isn't it?
It's inevitable. I know you like AI, and we use AI as well for transcribing. I think it's kind of funny that every time it sees a joke, it doesn't understand the joke, so it doesn't have to describe it.
Kind of like a liberal.
That's a different conversation there.
Or a Gen X or Gen Zer. I always say boomers are so old. Boomers like us are so old. We've forgotten what a joke is. The Xers, I should say the Zers and the millennials, they never knew what a joke was. And everybody else is just pissed off at everything, so they don't get any of it, right?
Well, you're right about that. That's for sure. I live in California, and the land of the thin skin, so we can't tell jokes here.
I'm enjoying it. Yeah, like Jerry Seinfeld said, he's basically giving up going on the road to colleges because, like I said, those people never knew what a joke was, right?
Yeah, why bother?
So, but AI has got to grow a sense of humor if that's at all possible, right?
Yeah, I do think that the disruption, again, and in 1999, 2000, there was a huge disruption, but the positive was so greater than the negative, it was worth it unless you lost your job in manufacturing to a robot, things like that you might have hated. I mean, if you remember the United Auto Workers Union, which is a third of what it once was, and you got replaced by a robot, you don't feel really good about that. But that is the reality of disruption. And we're in that, again, with AI, we're going to be disrupted in different ways.
Yep. This is so true. And you see it like with that robot. I'm sure you saw the YouTube of it where the guy says to the robot, I'm hungry, give me something to eat. And the robot picks up the apple and hands it to him. And then it says, put away these dishes. And it stacks up the dishes in a rack. And then he says to the guy, so how do you think you did? And the robot says, I think I did pretty good. You said you were hungry. I found the only food that was available here, and I handed it to you. And you said to put away the dishes, and I put away the dishes. I mean, man, hey, if I only had a spouse that cooperative, things would be totally different in my life.
There you go. Don't worry. You still have time to find a new one if you need to.
All right. Well, thank you for reinforcing my optimism on that front.
Yeah.
So we're headed for changes, though. That much is for certain. And I feel like a lot of the political instability that we're suffering is the angst, right, that people feel at these changes. Look back, like you and I grew up without the internet, right? And that, we wouldn't think of, we wouldn't let a day go by where we're not on the internet. Our kids have all grown up with the internet or close to it. We didn't have personal computers. Look how much different our lives are today than they were just a few short years ago.
It's a trade-off. Again, I think it's amazing what we're doing. on the good side. There's so much upside to that. And when it comes to using the internet, comes to using social media, there's a lot of downside. I don't want to say the internet because it's amazing. Tomorrow, your team needs to do a report about Afghanistan. In 5 to 10 minutes, they can have all the material at their fingertips using just their cell phone. On the other side of that, the same cell phone gets them wrapped up in Instagram and TikTok in a way that creates a highlight reel of everybody else's life but their own, and it leads to a world of sadness and depression. That's the flip side of all this ready-made good stuff at your fingertips is also ready-made bad stuff, and the manipulation of news, which TikTok now is getting quite a reputation for, of manipulating the news on how they want it to read, but there's nothing stopping it either. So, that means that the entire generation of the TikTok generation, something you and I, Kerry, are getting filtered news in a way that's very pro this and very anti that, which is not necessarily accurate for the betterment of the United States and our people.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. So when we look back in 10 years, assuming we're healthy and, hey, maybe it'll be the robots are basically doing all of our housework and everything else, which wouldn't be such a bad thing, would it? Where do you think we're going to be?
I don't know. Do I need to watch iRobot again with Will Smith?
Yeah, well, the dystopian future certainly is possible when you consider what's going on in tech and censorship and all that. But I'm an optimist, basically.
Good for you. And I think if you look at how life will get better, which again, being the optimist that you are, and I think of myself there also, is you're going to have a maid service, but the maid service is going to be robotic in your house. And maybe they'll be making your bed and maybe they won't be. But we've already got the little iRobot machines going around that now have the ability to understand and map out your house so they don't, suck up your cat or something like that or knock over a plant. They're already doing that. That's just a matter of time before they go from the small size that they are now to a higher size that they can make your bed. You may have a robot that makes your dinner, or that you order the dinner from a Fresh Choice or a Blue Apron type of thing, and it's ready to go, and all you do is hit it on your phone, turn your stove on, make sure it does everything for you, and all you need to do is take it out of the oven and put it on a table. It's ready to go. These are good things in a way for the personal side of life and the fun stuff. You probably won't be driving your car. That'll become considered old-fashioned.
Yeah.
But you'll probably sit there and I'll just drive for you. But that's okay, because that just means that fewer car accidents on the road. Fewer car accidents on the road means
yeah, there was
the medical industry is less tapped to other things like that.
It was at Berkshire Hathaway's annual meeting, and they were asking Warren Buffett about, Elon Musk's contention that, hey, we're going to have 50% less accidents on the highway once we have autonomous vehicles. And what does that mean to Geico, which Berkshire owns 100% of? And he didn't seem overly worried. Said, everybody thinks they can get into insurance and it's easy. You just get money and then you give people a little piece of paper back and you repeat. But it's harder than that. But I think he might have his head in the clouds a little bit on this topic. I've been driving Teslas now for 3 years, and a lot of them have been autonomous vehicles, like over 70,000 autonomous miles, a lot of autonomous miles. And I can tell you that on the highway, at 85 miles an hour, it drives better than me, because I generally wouldn't go that fast. But that car, man, and then I'm following it up. So it's another set of eyes. If it misses something, going to correct it. Locally, it's not quite as good, but it keeps improving. And I can, with the amount of improvement I've seen in 3 years, I can tell you that it's not that much further to go.
Well, look at who's going to be the winner here. You got people are driving their own cars or making their own meals. You and I are going to live longer. And if the average American is living longer now, that means, and we have a human body that breaks down at some point. That means the industries that deal with longer living Americans, nursing homes, in-home healthcare, they're going to be booming. There's going to be a lot of hiring going on. Then there's going to be a disruption from manufacturing to that senior service side of the market. And then if you're on that, you've got less maintenance to the road too. So there are jobs that today they work for, people that barely got through high school that work for the county or the city on maintenance projects. They weren't designed, they weren't destined to go to college. They weren't ready to go to college at the time. Their jobs could be very easily be eliminated because we got more perfection driving. You got robots cleaning up the garbage and stuff like that. So that's a change. And they're going to go work again at this what might be a higher wage job. They're going to work at a nursing home, which is definitely a lower wage job.
Hey, you start seeing it like all over. I said like 2-3 years ago, and look, I don't favor EV mandates. I don't favor EV subsidies. I think it's wrong. I think the market should be left because energy transitions that have taken place in the past, it's all been market driven. We had fire, right? We had wood. Then we went to coal. Then, we went to oil. And, well, first we had whale oil in the middle there. We had a lot of different ones, but the market dictated it. And generally, it worked out better. But this government mandates, they don't know when government picks winners and losers. But being that aside, I said, wow, the electrical utility industry is going to be a major beneficiary. They're going to have to expand to some extent, but all these EVs are going to be charged at home or elsewhere. And it's utility executives, dream to see all the cars propelled by electricity. That was before AI. And then we had Bitcoin mining and all that. But the AI soaks up way more electrical consumption than even the EVs do. So those utilities look pretty good, don't they?
They do. We really don't have a good energy policy in this country. I have my personal feelings about energy, but in general, we don't really have any kind of energy policy in this country. Outside a couple little tax breaks for some oil tax breaks that have been going on for a century, and then now some green energy tax breaks. We really don't have a good program. We need one.
We have no policy on anything that works anymore, it seems. Hey, what about the concept of mail delivery? And we're going to have to end it shortly, but, all of this mail delivery stuff seems to be, other than packages, seems to be kind of superfluous now, doesn't it?
Well, it's funny, Kerry. Everybody's been talking about the end of the US Postal Service for most of my life. And so it hasn't gone away yet. It's still doing its thing. I don't know if it's going to reinvent itself, but the U.S. Postal Service is part of the U.S. government. It's up until the 20th century, it was the largest part of the U.S. government until the Department of Defense and then social services all took off. But it was considered the most important thing in this country was the U.S. mail. But the reality is that we just can't afford it, and your children are going to have to figure out how to scale back the United States government. It's just too big, too cumbersome, too expensive, and they're going to have to figure that out. So U.S. mail is going to be one of those things that probably gets cut big.
All right. Hey, so Elliot, tell us where we find you on the web, how we connect with you, and all that good stuff. Great.
Best place to find me is prosperityfinancialgroup.com. Got Meet the Expert episodes. Got the book. It's all on there. My cell number is 510-206-1103. People call me I'm on the West Coast, so just be considerate of time zones. And then it's Elliot at ELLIOT at prosperityfinancialgroup.com.
All right. Links are in the show notes to this interview on financialsurvivalnetwork.com. While you're there, please sign up for our free newsletter. Elliot, been a pleasure. We will talk to you again. Hey, if you've got a question for Elliot and myself, shoot me an email, kl@kerrylutz.com. Elliot, thanks for stopping by. We will talk to you again real soon.
Great to be here. Thanks, Kerry.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.